Yo, what's good? Big Z here, and today I'm going to talk about a songwriting technique that helps pop artists like Charlie Puth get billions of streams. And then we can talk about how to apply it to electronic music. What I'm talking about is contrast. It's the most important tool you can use to get the listener's attention. I'll go through some examples. The simplest example is a contrast in volume. The second half of that chord progression just jumps out and really gets your attention because it's so much louder than the first half. Another example is contrast in rhythm. If one section of your track has longer notes and a slower rhythm, and then the next section has a fast rhythm, that's another good way to grab the listener's attention. Here's one more example. When one section of your song is really wet and atmospheric, and then the next section is really dry, that's contrast too. And when you combine these ideas, you can really amplify the differences between two sections. So when I'm talking about contrast, I'm talking about any tool you can use to make one section of your track noticeably different from the previous section. Listeners want change. If every element just has the same volume and rhythm throughout your whole track, then it's going to get really boring. Here's a list I made of different ways you can create contrast. Let's use Attention by Charlie Puth as an example. This track has over 1 billion streams on Spotify, and I think a big part of it is how well he uses contrast throughout the track. Listen to this section and see if you can pick out which types of contrast he's using.
And now I'm all up on you, what you expect, but you're not coming home with me tonight. You just want attention, you don't want my heart. Maybe you just...
First of all, he's definitely changing the atmosphere from wet to dry. In the verse, you can hear a really big reverb on his vocals. Then when the chorus hits, there's no reverb at all. It's just completely dry.
But you're not coming home with me tonight. You just want attention, you don't want my heart.
Don't Start Now by Dua Lipa is also another huge track that uses this trick. So another thing that Charlie Puth is doing here is taking a lot of layers and making the track sound really full. And then he's just taking all of those layers away. Right before the chorus, you can hear he's stacked his vocals with a bunch of doubles and harmonies.
But you're not coming home with me tonight.
You also have a big pad sound, a guitar pluck, a lower guitar layer, a white noise sweep, so a bunch of layers on top of each other, and then he takes all those layers away. And what you're left with is just the kick drum, one lead vocal, and the bass line.
Home with me tonight. You just want attention, you don't want my heart. Maybe you just...
So just that simple idea of having a lot of layers and then going down to just a couple layers really gets your attention and makes the track memorable. You could also say he's adding contrast in the frequency spectrum. In the verse, it's more focused in the mids and highs, and then when the chorus kicks in, he's letting in those low frequencies for the kick and the bass line.
But you're not coming home with me tonight. You just want attention, you don't want my...
You never want to give away too many frequencies before the most important part of your track hits. Now let's talk about how to apply this to electronic music. You probably never thought you'd hear someone say this, but there are actually a lot of similarities between that Charlie Puth track and Fisher's new track, Just Feels Tight.
just feels tight.
Just like the Charlie Puth track, he's making the build-up really atmospheric by using a lot of reverb, and then when the drop hits, everything is completely dry.
Just feels tight.
He's also changing the rhythm and the pace of the lead melody. In the build-up, it's pretty much all 16th notes. Then the drop hits and he slows the lead melody rhythm down to mainly 8th notes, so it just creates some contrast between the pacing of the lead melody. That change in rhythm really just keeps things interesting and makes you want to hit the dance floor. The other big difference between the verses and the drops in this track are the volume and the frequency range of the drums. The drums in the verses are much quieter and the sub-frequencies are being cut out. And actually the highs of the hi-hats are being tamed in the verses compared to the drop. And of course in the drops, the drums are much louder and they're taking up the full frequency spectrum. So we can see this contrast by looking at the frequency range here. So in electronic music, you can definitely use these techniques to make your tracks a lot more exciting. At the end of the day, the whole point of songwriting is just to keep the listener engaged throughout the whole track from start to finish. That's why I think this is the most important songwriting technique. I've definitely been trying to use it a lot more in my own tracks that I'm working on. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys next time. Peace.
Just feels tight.